Good afternoon, Keesler. My name is Technical Sergeant Prowant. I'm a Cyber Fundamentals instructor working over at Dolan Hall. I'm really excited to talk to you all about an emerging technology called artificial intelligence. And so the way I learned most of everything I know about AI is, well, I got the opportunity to attend the Mississippi Educational Computing Association Conference, which was called MECA. This is where a ton of educators from the school system, K through 12, got together and had workshops about how they could enhance learning outcomes for their students in Mississippi. Now, while there, if I would have drank a sip of water every time somebody said AI, I would have literally died. But so that you don't have to, I've distilled all that awesome information into a really good micro-learning video for y'all so that you can learn the basics of AI. In this video, we're going to go over artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about ethical implementation, talking about your guidelines and guardrails to make sure that you are on track to use this appropriately. And finally, I'll give you a real quick breakdown and practical demonstration of 2 AI tools. So let's go ahead and jump into the video. It's pretty exciting what's happening right now. So we're going to break down some basic concepts with artificial intelligence. And so you're probably already using it in your daily life, whether you're using it for voice assistance, whether you're using it for fraud detection with your credit card company, or whether you're using it in your network devices as you're moving from place to place, and even in gaming, AI is used. And those are some basic versions that have been used in the past. But today, the modern sense of AI has changed. So this is artificial intelligence systems is anything that mimics human intelligence. So there's a couple things that go into that, like computer vision, deduction, and reasoning. And so they've essentially identified the patterns of behavior, and they've tried to mimic that using algorithms. So that would be artificial intelligence. Machine learning is taking the algorithms and learning patterns from a data set. A data set would be anything that's information that we have collected and we pour into the machine so that it can learn these patterns and deduce the patterns and take those and help answer questions that we might have. We have another term called deep learning. This is where it's like these neural networks that work together. It's multiple machine learning systems working together to try and solve complex problems using math. So this is the stuff that they're going to use to probably cure cancer one day, in theory, right, with deep learning. Now, the thing that you're probably the most familiar with in your daily life is generative AI. So generative AI would be the type of AIs that are apps that generate stuff. They create something for you, whether it's text, a picture, a video. Those things would be generative AI, and that's what most people are using today, and is a very practical tool, especially for our airmen who may need to recraft an email, to go through a data set that has been provided to them. They may be able to give it to the AI and ask it for some insights that it can glean from it. So those would be a couple of AI topics. So when we talk about the different policies that are defining AI right now, we have a couple of interim guidances, and they're constantly being updated, so make sure that you're checking out the most official sources. Here closer to us, and where I work, we have the 81st Training Group use of generative AI, artificial intelligence, but the basics of all of these policies, behind all of them, we have a couple of do's and don'ts that I want to break down for y'all. So DoD personnel should not use AI in any way that could compromise classified information, and we do not want to undermine the public trust. So we're not going to leak anything that's classified. We're not going to go and put that in a prompt or a text field into any, especially commercial AIs that might be out there. So we don't want to expose that sensitive data. And then, of course, undermining public trust. There's so much that could fall into that. And it really, when we talk about AI ethics, you need to look at whatever you're doing and making sure that it is ethical and that it would not undermine public trust. Okay, so we have a couple guiding principles when we talk about AI implementation. There'll be 5 words, 5 concepts that are going to keep reappearing to you. So the first one's traceable, reliable, responsible, equitable, and governable. So these are all the different rules and lenses that we'll be taking a look at when we go to use an AI. So when we talk about traceable, it means it needs to be able to be explained. So the AI cannot happen, the algorithm cannot be in a black box that we cannot go in and see how it does the math to give us the answer. So controversy at the beginning of the year with TikTok, a lot of the controversy behind it was because we don't really know what is happening in the algorithm that works behind the scenes to give people what they get in their feed. So that would not be a good example of explainable AI that we as DoD personnel could use. Reliable. Well, that comes down to making sure that the AI is not hallucinating and it is giving us reliable feedback. So yes, these tools can hallucinate. They can give us bad information. Responsible. So we are charged to make sure that it is ethically used. So it's going to come up to us to use our sound human judgment. Equitable, meaning that when these AIs are designed, they may be designed by people, right? And those people may have certain biases that they're trying to lead the AI to give outcomes of certain biases to certain agendas. So we want to minimize any unintended biases in the AI and be aware that there may be unintended biases and work to mitigate those instances. And then finally, governable. So we're all worried that the AI is going to take over, right? Well, really what we're getting down to with governable means we have to be able to control. There needs to be some sort of checks, checklists, and controls that we are held accountable to using these AIs. So we'll enable oversight and controls and safeguards to avert any unintended consequences, right? So when you're thinking about, should I be using this AI or not, it comes down to basically three things. Well, is it appropriate? Is it questionable or inappropriate? Appropriate would be things like a general knowledge check. It's not likely that you go to your supervisor every day and ask them, hey, can I go to google.com and ask them, can I please go look at a question on Google, right? It's not something that typically you go ask your supervisor, because a general knowledge check should be low risk. And so that's what we're talking about with appropriate use. You're using it to do your job. Now, questionable risk is questionable uses where there may be some sort of unintended risk. So if you're trying to develop a new SOP for your work center, a standard operating procedure, then you might need to work with your supervisor and make sure that this SOP that was helped designed by AI truly meets the intent of what you were trying to achieve. And so that means that questionable use means it just needs to be approved before you can use it. And finally, inappropriate use gets back to not leaking sensitive data, not leaking PII, and not using it in a way that will undermine public trust. So no inappropriate use, it's prohibited. All right, so a couple extra terms I want to make sure that you'll know. We have this term called veracity, and this is really talking about finding the truth. And we want to make sure that the AI is not just saying things to help us move on. And what I mean by that is veracity is a term that's like, for example, I said a second ago that AIs can hallucinate. So if we ask the AI, hey, why is the sky blue? And it told us, well, the sky is blue because at night when fairies pass over the sky, they leave a trail of pixie dust behind that leaves the sky blue by morning. Although it's a colorful use of language, it is not true scientifically. And so the veracity of that, the truth of that is not real. So we got to be aware and use our human judgment to check for that accuracy. We got to be aware that there could be biases involved as well. We got to know what privacy is, right? So we can't put anybody's PII in the prompt field. And another one is when we talk about intellectual property, this is meaning that people may have certain rights to certain academic books that they may have wrote, videos or pictures that they have wrote, and we have to pay attention to copyright and not to infringe on that. So AI right now is being looked at how some AIs are developing pictures and generative AI based off of a source data. So at the end of the day, we got to make sure that we still cite our sources. So even if you use AI to find, some information, you still are responsible for citing the sources, and they must be factual. At the end of the day, it requires you as an airman to use that balanced thinking, use that human intelligence, and make sure that when you use this stuff, at the end of the day, it's going to be your name, your work center, and the Air Force's name that it's attributed to any of the work that you use AI to help you with. We're going to talk about a couple of practical tools that you can use. We're going to talk about some of the AIs that are on the ATO. So another term that you may hear in the cyber realm or in the Air Force at large is authority to operate. So authority to operate is talking about, are you allowed to use this on the Air Force network? So we got a couple of, I'm going to demonstrate two practical AI tools that you can use that are on the authority to operate. So if you're using a DoD system and you're on the AFNet, you can go to Ask Sage or NIPRGPT. These are both two awesome AI platforms that have been helping a lot of our government officials or our total full force airmen to use these AI tools. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first one. Of course, the first time you use these AI systems, you may need to use your CAC and register, and then after that, you're off to the races. So right here, we're looking at Ask Sage. We can go in here and ask it a question. So what can you do? All right, and then it's going to reply back with some information. Seems right here it's dropping a subreddit for us to look at while it's thinking. Okay. So while it's doing that, I want to highlight some other features here. You can do what's called knowledge ingestion, which means you can feed it documents and you can have it take a look at a document and read through it. And if you want to ask it questions about the document, it will analyze it. Here you can see we have Live Plus open. And if you want to turn this off, you can. But when we say something is live or Live Plus in this instance, it's going to pull information from the web. If you turn this feature off, it's only going to use data that's sourced from the DoD. All right, and then Live Plus, of course, is going to look at the top 10 results and summarize the top 2 web pages for you. So use this information wisely. Although it says it's rated CUI here, this one is not rated for CUI. But one that is NIPRGPT. And just recently it got an update with NIPRGPT version 2. So I'm going to pull that up for you all right here. Now, of course, you got these user agreements you got to make sure that you're reading through before you go in here and play around with these tools. So here, you can click this little attach file. You can attach a file. So for example, if you want to scrub for any kind of language, if you want to scrub through to make an analysis of a document, you can do that from here. When you go to ask AI a question, one of the things I always encourage people to do is to ask it more than they think it can do, right? And when we talk to humans, I don't want to inconvenience you by giving you a super long question, but we don't have to worry about that with with our machines here, our learning machines, our AI. We can give it more information. The more information you can put in that prompt field, the better of a result you're going to get back. So think about the kind of role you want to take, how you want it to think, and what kind of patterns you want to see, and what is your end goal, right? And then ask it to deliver more than you think it can. So those would be a couple quick basics there on the practical tools for AI. All right, let's wrap this up then. All right, finally in conclusion, when we're talking about AI, this is something that's going to help us increase our AQ, our human capital, or our action quotient, making sure we're taking more effective actions per day. And this is particularly, we can use this to streamline any of our redundant tasks, like in our administrative roles. And this is the type of thing that's going to allow us to seize the initiative in the competitive landscape that is ahead of our airmen. All right, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.